It's all about IVF, what everyone needs to know. There are so many myths and facts surrounding IVF. And before starting that, any couple who gets into a relationship or gets married, the next thing they feel that as and when they want a baby, they can have it. But the situation is not so. The infertility is on a rise. Infertility clinics are mushrooming, and this confuses the couple all the more because they need a help. They know that they need to visit an infertility clinic. And when this mushrooming clinics are there, they're also confused that where they should go. There are certain myths like IVF is only for rich and only who can afford it. It is not a safe treatment. Maybe my body will not react good to the hormone and I'll have problems later on. Oh, it's a very high negative rate and that means my money goes down the drain. The other thing that what if IVF fails? The couple feels that they'll never have a baby. Or they feel that it is a treatment where you only get twins and multiple pregnancy. So let us see how we can clear all these misconceptions associated with infertility IVF. Infertility is on rise. 1 in 6 couples, that is totally, we can see that so many 180 plus million plus couples are affected. But the good part is that IVF is now 4 decades old treatment, more than 8 million in 2018. So now even 10 million babies must have been born world over. Yes, it is for a fact that you are not the only couple who is suffering from this. It is on a rise because the age, people delay getting pregnant or delay the pregnancy, thinking that, oh, when I want a baby, I can have it. If I cannot have it, IVF will help me. But that's not correct. Stress, a lot of stress, work-related stress. They have stress related to their career, social stress, whatever. The diet is not very good. Either they are overweight or they do a lot of exercise to become a zero figure. Then abuse of alcohol, smoking, too high caffeine intake, too much of exercise and electronic gadgets. So these all things have added to the infertility scenario in this world. So now we will see the egg reserve of a female. At birth, she may have 1.5 million, but by the time she is 30, she has just 12% of those eggs, and by the time she is 40, it's just 3%. That means that the right time for a female to plan a baby is between 20 to 30, and it is said that between 20 to 35 is the right time when she should deliver. But we are defying nature. We want to postpone it to 35 or even at 38, but that is the time when the infertility sets in. That is the time when your oocyte, that is the egg quality and quantity, go down. And that is the time when you will have a lot of pregnancy loss and unexplained infertility. So if we look at the age, you can see here the percentage success at 25 would be 50, 60, 50, almost 40 to 50, then it goes down. By the time you are 38, it comes so down. Live births, it's only 30%, and by the time you are 42, it is only 10 to 12%. So that is what is very important for an infertile couple to understand, that her age and her eggs matter. Male infertility is also on a rise. You can see that the men who are working a fast pace of life, the recreational drugs, excessive gymming and bodybuilding, the electronic gadgets, and over-tight clothing, all this gives rise to poor quality sperms, and it is reducing. So we look at the assisted reproductive technology. This is Louise Brown, who is now almost completed 40 years, and she herself delivered naturally a baby. So you can understand that the babies born with IVF treatment are as normal as a normal pregnancy or a natural pregnancy. IVF, if we consider, it is a simple procedure. What is happening in a fallopian tube? That is, the egg gets released. goes into the fallopian tube, the sperms enters the cervix, goes into the tube, fertilizes, and the embryo comes here and settles. That is the natural pregnancy. But for IVF, we remove the eggs from the ovary in a petri dish, mix the sperm with it, and when the embryos are formed, we transfer it back into the uterus. Now, which are the patients which will need IVF? Do all infertility patients need IVF? Certainly no. There are simpler treatments like ovulation induction, a simple tubal patency test and a patient will conceive, or a simple laparohysteroscopy and she'll conceive, or with intrauterine insemination. But there is a section of group which will definitely benefit with IVF and a section of group which will only need IVF. So if both the tubes are blocked, then you cannot open it with any infection, chlamydia or tuberculosis or any surgery that has blocked it. A severe male factor, the count is very, very low, less than 15 million. The motility is very low. The DNA fragmentation is very high. Or there are no sperms that are ejaculating and there is blockage in the male tubes also, Vas. Or there are no sperms and no blockage but non-obstructive azoospermia. Endometriosis, females having painful menstrual cycle. Polycystic ovaries is definitely on a rise, and with a high AMH, you need IVF. Advanced age, best to go for IVF. Unexplained infertility, a doctor cannot pinpoint what is the reason. Go for IVF, maybe you will find a reason that the quality of the egg, or it's not getting fertilized, or there is an arrest after fertilization. HIV discordant couple, females with premature ovarian failure, and menopausal women. Now, let us see the basic steps. First is the pre-IVF preparation, then the superovulation, egg collection, fertilization, embryo formation, and transfer. And most important is the positive attitude. It's a daycare procedure, no hospitalization required, and only 6 visits required. So this is the flow of how an IVF will work. When you start the ovarian stimulation, you will be needed for monitoring at the clinic. Then there is a trigger what we give, and in 34 to 36 hours, we retrieve the eggs. The sperms are prepared. The sperms can be frozen. The husband can be far away. We can use the frozen sperm into it and transfer it. The beauty is you can freeze the eggs, you can freeze the sperms, freeze the embryos, and decide when you want to get pregnant. What does pre-IVF workup include? One is a proper counseling that you need to know about your infertility problem, awareness about it, what are the lifestyle changes that you need, the supplements that you need, and the investigations where you are treated for all general conditions. Sometimes it's a surprise, you find a thyroid, hypothyroid status, or you're anemic, or you are diagnosed with a hypertension, and these things should be taken care of. Counseling is very important. All relevant information you should take from the clinic, that what are the limitations of these procedures, what are the results, what are the side effects if I do it, if we compare it with other treatment, what is the success rate, cost, yes, everybody should ask. Then what are the success rates world over? Do I get multiple pregnancy? Supposing I have multiple and I want to reduce it to 1, or I have triplets and I want to reduce to twins, is there a possibility? How many attempts I can do? Then what happens to my eggs, sperms, or embryos that are frozen? This is the part of counseling that is very, very important, and each and every clinic should have a counselor, and then finally the infertility specialist who should sit and coolly explain the full procedure to the couple. Now, pre-IVF workup for 2.5 months, go for a healthy lifestyle, regular sleep hours, avoid electronic gadgets, try to meditate, try to release that stress. Then go for healthy diet in the form of green vegetables, fruits, tomatoes, dry fruits, walnuts, almonds. Avoid carbs, go for Mediterranean diet, go for some form of healthy exercise, yoga, aerobics, etc. When you are going to start the cycle, the doctor will call you on day 1 of your menstrual cycle, or if you are using a long protocol, day 21 of the previous cycle. And you start with your injections. Normally, a female will produce 1 egg in her natural cycle. But here in IVF, we tend to collect a good cohort of 8, 12, 14, 15 eggs. They say 15 eggs will definitely give one healthy blastocyst euploid for the female to conceive. So how do we do that? We give you hormone injections, which are the gonadotrophins. It could be pure FSH, recombinant FSH, or an HMG, which is a mix of both FSH and LH. You have to take the injection at the same time every day. You cannot take one day in the morning, one day in the evening. So your compliance is very, very important. Then in between, say on the 6th day, on the 8th day, depending on how your follicles are progressing, you will be called for scan and blood test. Sometimes you get stimulated in 8 days, and sometimes it can take as long as 12 days also. And then this is how the ultrasound will look when the follicles are growing. We measure that. We also try to compare with the thickness of the endometrium. We check the blood flow and see that how good these follicles are. When the follicles on an average 3 reach a size of 18 millimeter or plus, and the endometrium is good, we give a trigger. Trigger is an HCG injection or GnRH agonist. It is taken at a particular time, and if you are self-administering, see that you take it at that particular time, because we have planned our egg retrieval 34 to 36 hours later. So everything depends on that. Once in a while, I get a crazy call. Doctor, by mistake, I took the trigger a little too early or a little too late, or I forgot to take it today, or I took the antagonist in the night and I took the trigger in the morning. So these mistakes could be very costly. So these instructions should be properly given. You can take the number of the counselor and the nurse and reconfirm it whenever you are taking this injection. The oocyte pickup or the egg retrieval procedure is quite simple. You are taken in the operation theater. A short general anesthesia is what we prefer. It's minimally invasive. Transvaginally, like a scan, we go and we put the needle through the guide and retrieve all the follicles vaginally. And in 30 minutes, the procedure is over. You are shifted to your observation room where you rest for 2 hours. Maybe there could be slight discomfort. The male partner is asked to give the sperms, or if we have the frozen, we can use it. And the same day you go back, you can rest for a day, but then you can go back to your regular activities the following day. This is ICSI. Whenever the sperm count is very low, or with the IVF there is low fertilization, or the zona of the egg is very hard, we try to inject. This is the IVF procedure where you just take the eggs in a petri dish and put the sperm prepared on it. And the ICSI procedure, here you can see that one sperm is taken in a pipette and one sperm is injected. One is a holding pipette, this is the injecting pipette. This is mainly for the men who have very low motile sperms, very abnormal sperms, or very low count, or anti-sperm antibodies, or when we have taken out the sperms from the testes, or they have repeated failures, or when we are using frozen sperms, we prefer to use ICSI. One egg, one sperm. What is IMSI? Now the sperms also, they may look normal microscope, but if you just try to see it 6,000, 7,000 times magnified, you will find that the head has a problem or the tail has a problem, and that's an abnormal sperm, which will not fertilize the egg. So we go for IMSI, intracytoplasmic morphologically selected sperm for the injection. Now, once the egg and sperm are fertilized, they are put in the incubator. And the next day in 18 hours, the embryologist will check for 2PN. This is the fertilization. They divide to 2 cells. By day 2, there are 4 cells. By day 3, there are 6 to 8 cells. On day 4, they are morula. And on day 5, it grows into a lovely blastocyst. Laser assisted hatching, that is one more technique, especially in patients with advanced stage, implantation failure, a thick margin of the egg or the embryo, and when you are using the frozen thawed embryos. With the laser, we put a cut on the blastocyst and we allow the inner cell mass and the full blastocyst to get out, release from this. So it is the laser assisted hatching. That is one more technology. Once the embryo is ready, the final step, which is the most important step, I will say, for embryo transfer, the physician The clinician should have all the time in her world to transfer this lovely embryo, because it is the end result of the effort of almost, I would say, 6 weeks. The embryologist should also be in a cool mind, and you also should go with a very positive attitude. You will be called with a full bladder, sometimes half full, and then ultrasound, we check the position of the uterus. We do a pre checkup, just try to see that it is negotiated easily, the catheter, and you are awake. On the ultrasound, we can show you that how your embryos are being placed, and after that you are discharged on the same day. Maybe you can rest for 2 days and then follow your normal activities. No vigorous exercise, or that is all what we say, or excessive weightlifting. Routine, you're working, you can do it. Blastocyst is day 5 embryo, which is more robust than day 3, and it gives a higher success rate compared to day 3 embryo. But yes, couples where the AMH is low, where their age is advanced, we prefer to do a day 3 transfer. How many embryos do you transfer? That is one of the question that most of the couples would want to know. When they are less than 35 and they are grade AA embryos, we would prefer to transfer 2 to 3 on day 3, and blastocyst only 1, maybe if the couple is ready for twins 2. But above the age of 35, we can take the liberty to transfer 3 to 4 of day 3, and definitely 2 blastocysts. Also, everything depends on the grade, the condition of the uterus, if there is a medical problem or not, all these factors, or if there is a previous child and the couple wants one child. So we have to discuss when we are going to transfer the embryos. We click the pictures, we show it on the computer to you that these are your embryos, the grade, and how we decide to transfer. It is a discussion, mutual discussion, and then we decide. Embryo freezing and frozen embryo transfer. Now we have made the IVF a very patient-friendly cycle. We compartmentalize it, so the patient is not under a continuous stress. Like if she says, I want to freeze the embryos, then for 2 months I have to go on a holiday, wedding, we can freeze, and then when you come back, we can do your frozen embryo transfer, which has equally, and in some studies even better result than the fresh transfer. This is because when you are not stimulated, your hormone levels are not very high, your uterus is quiet, it is not contracting, you are not under any pain because no retrieval has been done, and we can prepare your lining as we want. The endometrium doesn't get advanced. But both fresh and frozen have the same result, indication for success. The maternal age is at the time of embryo freezing is the guiding factor. After that, we give the progesterone support. Either we give oral tablets, or we give intramuscular injections, vaginal pessary, vaginal gel, or subcutaneous. This option we can discuss with the patient and make it as friendly as possible. Risk of ovarian hyperstimulation, yes. PCOS patients and even normal responder patients can sometimes have this problem. But now, with the antagonist protocol, that is when we start from day 1 and day 6, we add the antagonist, retrieving of the eggs and the trigger with the GnRH agonist, avoiding the HCG trigger, and freezing. And if we have to give an HCG trigger, we freeze all the embryos and suppress the estradiol level. Virtually, OHS has become very, very, very rare. And what are the precautions we need to take? The dosage of the injection should be decided such. If a PCOS patient, she can be on metformin for 3 months prior, and the trigger should always be agonist. And once the eggs are retrieved, we can give cabergoline, we can give antagonist injections or letrozole tablet to suppress it further. There could be some anesthetist risk. Multiple births, very rare. Ectopic pregnancy, yes, but now we go for a blastocyst and a frozen transfer, which virtually reduces the risk of ectopic. The cost is what the patient may consider a risk, and the psychological distress. Pre-IVF hysteroscopy and laparoscopy. The endoscopy and IVF go hand in glove. Hysteroscopy is especially important, like if you have a polyp or a septum, we have to definitely remove it before we transfer, or a fibroid. And laparoscopy, when the ovaries are stuck posteriorly, you cannot actually access it for retrieval. We have to go for a laparoscopy also. Or huge chocolate cysts and endometrioma on both the sides. So what are the indications for laparoscopy? Endometriomas, a fibroid which is coming in the way, it's an intramural, panmural fibroid, there are adhesions, uterus shape is not normal, or the tubes are containing fluid, what we call hydrosalpinx, which can trickle inside the uterus and kill the embryo, which is embryotoxic. PCO patients, we can drill the ovary, so the hormone levels go down and chances of OHSS also reduce, and ovarian PRP when we are doing. Let us look at the other advancements in treatment. One is pre-implantation genetic testing of the embryo for aneuploidy or even for single gene diseases, and regenerative medicine. We know that there are a lot of factors affecting, and age of the female is important, and equally important is the genetic and chromosomal competence of the embryos. So if we look here, the number of abnormal embryos increases to 80% or more in women who are 40 years and older. So these embryos, when before transferring in a female, we can test it whether they are actually normal or abnormal. Once the embryo reaches day 3 or a blastocyst, we take a biopsy and then we run it on an NGS platform and we find out that it is a normal, and then only we transfer. There are indications like advanced age, severe male factor, multiple miscarriages, where definitely we need. This is our first PGTA baby of Gujarat in 2014. This couple, husband was American, wife was Indian. They had multiple miscarriages. We had 10 embryos biopsied. We transferred 2 and a healthy baby was born. This is a British doctor whose family was suffering from a neurological disease, and they found out that the male members in the family were harboring COL4A1 mutation. So we got the blood from UK for the couple. We found out that this probe can be developed here. We got them, we created the embryos. In the first cycle, all were abnormal. In the second cycle, we got 3, we transferred 1, and the healthy baby was born. And this is a successful PGTM for albinism. I think hardly 1 or 2 cases in the world has been done, and first in India. The couple had a baby who was an albino. They had no history of albinism in the whole family. They were from Africa, and they inquired. We got the blood samples of all 3, mother, father, and baby, and we found out that there is a mutation which individually mother and father are carrier, but they did not have a disease. But the child had got both this mutation and was positive. So what we did, we called them, for 2 years the treatment ran. We did 3 IVF cycles. Out of those 10 embryos, we could finally get a normal embryo which was not carrying this, and ultimately a healthy baby was born last year in June. So this baby does not carry the same mutation and is a healthy baby without the oculocutaneous albinism. Third party reproduction, which is not prevalent in many countries, not definitely in Dubai, but in India we are allowed to do it legally, and we do egg donation, we do embryo donation, we do sperm donation. When the female is of advanced age, her ovaries have not developed or are resistant, or because of malignancy has to be removed, or she's repeatedly giving bad oocytes, not giving good embryo, or has a genetic disorder, or has entered menopause. Premature menopause is now very commonly seen. These females can benefit from egg donation. When men and women both have a problem, we can go for embryo donation. And surrogacy, when the female is born without uterus or has used fibroids, adenomyosis, tuberculosis, uterus is not healthy, repeated miscarriages, repeated IVF failure, or severe medical condition like heart disease, kidney disease, or is a single father who wants to carry, that time we do it. Now let us look at the common myths about IVF. IVF can certainly deal with all infertility problems. No, it is not correct. IVF can deal with many a problem, but whenever there comes an issue with the gamete, you may need a gamete donation, or is an issue with the uterus, you will need surrogacy. Only IVF will not suffice. It's a treatment for rich people only. Now EMIs have started in many countries. They can help. Unfortunately, India, it is not being sponsored by the government, but European countries do sponsor it. And now we have made it very friendly because the pharma companies are also helping people who need it and cannot afford it. Only young people can benefit. Yes, one thing is certain, that the age matters. The female's age, younger she is, higher the success rate she is. But that doesn't mean that the older age doesn't get a pregnancy. She gets it, but the success rate is lower. Or IVF has a 100% achievement rate. There are clinics who will shout at the top of their voice that we give 100% guaranteed package, guaranteed baby. No, the success rate varies from couple to couple, could be as low as 10%, 5% to as high as 70% when we have a PGS normal embryo. The children born with IVF have problems and are malformed. The total threat of giving birth to an IVF child with abnormalities is very low. The danger is as unpredictable as the normal conception. It is not safe. It is a very safe procedure. Studies are coming out that it does not affect the ovarian cancer part, and the hyperstimulation has also gone down. Multiple pregnancy is your choice. If you transfer just one blastocyst, you won't have twins 99%. IVF needs you to be admitted. No, you don't need a single day admission for IVF. Egg retrieval is a daycare procedure. Embryo transfer is a daycare procedure. IVF leads to only cesarean births. No, you treat it like another natural pregnancy. You can have natural births also, but there are partners and patients who are very anxious and would want to go for C-section. It's a different thing. So to conclude, more than 10 million babies born, fertility, female age and fertility to be watched for better results. Women with comorbidity should be offered laparohysteroscopy whenever indicated. IVF is a simple and minimally invasive procedure offered to patients for various kinds. Pre-IVF treatment and counseling is a very integral part, and selecting the best clinic, the right clinic at the right time is very important. Healthy lifestyle, holistic approach, and positive attitude is what you need. The earlier you go for it, it is best. Better do it early than late. But are you late? No problem. Better late than never. Still go ahead and try, so that you will feel that I tried everything. And if it happens, it happens. It does not happen, you don't get regret that you never tried anything. Thank you.